our hope is for a very holistic approach to how you get to your goals so that your goals are aligned with who you are, and it's much more satisfying and fulfilling to walk in integrity with who you are, and then your actions align with that. And when we do that, it's exponential, our success. Like, we're able to actually achieve them instead of feel the conflict of wanting to achieve something that doesn't align with who we are.
Welcome to Authentic Energy, a podcast dedicated to getting to the bottom of what it means to be your true, authentic self at work. I am your host, Wendy Brand. Let's take this learning journey together as I meet with guests weekly. Whether you are a leader or individual contributor, a teacher or a nurse, we'll share conversations and stories that highlight meaningful connections, self-awareness, a sense of belonging, and all the components necessary to create a workplace where you can show up in your authentic energy. Welcome back to Authentic Energy. I am your host, Wendy Brand. For those of you that have been listening or following me on social media, you're aware that my colleague Jashana Forrester and I hosted our Let's Goal workshops last week for 2 different audiences. And because the feedback that we are receiving was so positive, for the last 3 episodes of the year, I'm going to share the clips from our workshop with you. The workshop was 3 hours and really included 3 components: values, visioning, and goals. So I'm pulling content from each section to share with you each week as you prepare for the new year and your own goal setting. Now, this particular episode is from the first part of our workshop where we're talking about values and really the importance of understanding your own personal values before you do your goal setting, so that when you create goals for 2024, that they're really in alignment with your personal core values. And so we'll share more in the episode. I also wanted to let you know that there's a free worksheet that you can go onto my website at wmbcoaching.com/values-assessment and download the values worksheet that we're using in this portion of the workshop. I hope you enjoy it.
Okay, so today we're going to, hopefully for anyone who hasn't done the reflection page, I did my own as well, take some time to think about 2023, because it's just really meaningful and good for us to remember what we have done and what is great and has happened in our life that we're grateful for. Definitely impacts how we feel. So as we go forward today, we are going to get to goals. No doubt some of you have already come in with some idea of what 2024 should look like, or you might want it to look like. So we're definitely going to get there. But we are going to approach this starting with values. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're also going to our hope is for a very holistic approach to how you get to your goals, so that your goals are aligned with who you are, and it's much more satisfying and fulfilling to walk in integrity with who you are, and then your actions align with that. And when we do that, it's exponential, our success. Like, we're able to actually achieve them instead of feel the conflict of wanting to achieve something that doesn't align with who we are. So before we dive into the actual goals and actions part of our workshop, I want to spend some time looking at values, which is what really motivates you and what really drives you. So we believe that in order to truly be successful daily in all that you're doing in your life, and to feel that sense of satisfaction and fulfillment, we have to ensure that our goals are going to line up with what we value. Otherwise, we're going to have that conflict internally. And that's what works against us when it comes to success. Okay, so values are what describe our personal motivation, and that determines how we feel, and it also determines how we live. Okay, 2 very important elements of life when we're planning our next year. So when we live according to values that we have consistently and repeatedly over time, we experience that satisfaction that I was talking about. So when we lead our lives according to these values, we feel that balance And that's the internal balance, right? How we feel, and the external balance and how we're interacting with the world. So if you value friendship, you feel internally balanced when you're with friends and you're prioritizing that. And you also take action to align with that, making time for friends, or say health, fitness. That's your value. You're going to feel not in conflict with yourself when you're actually prioritizing health and fitness. So you feel great, and you're probably going to do things that would prioritize it. So it's very simple, right? So when we identify what we value and then we reflect on how we're actually living, then we're able to also see where we may be out of balance with our values. And that's going to also determine how we feel, right? If we're not living in alignment with that. One of the things I do a lot of work with is living in integrity with yourself, because when we know ourselves, when we know who we are and what we value, and then when we live according to that, it's just so much easier to feel satisfied, feel peace, feel confident. And that's ultimately where we have the most success. Okay, so without going too deep today, what drives our values are we have beliefs surrounding that. And so as you'll hear more about at the end of our class, we'll have some deeper work that we can do with beliefs and understanding what drives us, what beliefs are driving us, and what beliefs are potentially limiting us in our day-to-day life and in achieving our goals and success. But for today, we're going to talk about how beliefs and our lived experiences help inform that system, that value system that we have. So for example, beliefs surround these and influence and inform these decisions. I was thinking through some examples that would be good for this. And so let's take that health example on values. If you prioritize health, it may have come from your grandparents who, let's say they were diabetic, they had a lot of complications from diabetes, and therefore you prioritize health because they didn't have a healthy regimen. Think, well, okay, I would rather have that healthy regimen to avoid those complications. Well, so those lived experiences and the belief that that regimen is going to impact your own health is what drives your high value on that. But let's flip that and take, for example, your grandparents had diabetes. They did have complications, but they were healthy. They had a healthy regimen. Well, that lived experience forms a different belief that maybe it doesn't really matter how you live. It's just going to happen anyway. So why prioritize it? So in that process, those experiences and those beliefs are driving those values. And so today we're just focusing on what your values are so that you can have a better idea of who you are and how it's going to drive what you choose to do for 2024. Okay, so for our next exercise, let's take that values list. Again, not an exhaustive list, but what I'd like you to do is take a few minutes now. This may take the bulk of the time. Walk through that, and just first step is just to highlight the ones that jump out at you that are definitely ones you connect with. Now, these may all be valuable in some way. So we're not saying any are not valuable. We're just saying, hey, for me, these are my higher values. This is what I really connect with here. So we're going to give you some time to work through that, and then we'll come back and we'll do another exercise after that. Okay. All right. This is where I'd love to hear a little bit back from you guys. I know that when I've done this with clients, both Wendy and I have talked about this, there's a lot of struggle around this part of picking values. And so one of the questions I get is, how do I do that? I'm thinking about what I do. What do I look like I value by what I'm doing? And so at this point, we're kind of challenging that a little bit and asking you to go into like, who am I? What is in me that I'm drawn to? Not as much what we do, because sometimes what we do doesn't actually reflect our values. Like, let's say, for example, I work at a recycling plant and I volunteer on the weekends to help with recycling or something of that sort. But I don't have a high value on nature or environment. It's not saying I don't value it. It's just not my high value. So sometimes what I'm doing and spending my time on isn't always in alignment with my actual personal value. And so what we're asking you to do today is to really reflect on what is innate in you and what you value and what you're drawn to. Okay, well, so our next step, we're going to take that list that you have, and we're going to transfer 10 of those to the next exercise, which is that list of values. If you can see the next page that has the lines. And so on the left side, you'll see that values column. I want you to group and you can group them. Like for me, one of my high values is communication. But I also value under that listening. That's part of communicating, right? So if you'll see communication and listening, we're two different ones on that list. And so I group those together as a value because for me, they are grouped together in that value. So if you want to list 10, you can group more than one. As you can see, mine are also grouped together on some of those and put those into that column. So we have at least 10 to work with for today. So we're going to move right into what those two columns are. The first one is importance and the second one is alignment. So for our next part of this exercise, I want you to think about each one of these on that list of 10. And I want you to give it a rating of how important this is in your life. Okay. So if it's not at all, which meaning obviously these are going to have values because you chose them. They're going to have value in importance in your life, but some may not be your highest value. So the highest level is extremely important. So let's take my mom will openly share that her faith and spirituality is of utmost importance. And it would that would be a 10 for her. The things that may be valuable, but maybe not that level of utmost importance, get a lower rating. So we're not rating them as less than, we're just kind of getting an idea of its importance in your own personal values. So let's take a minute or two and walk through this. Again, you can change this rating later, so don't feel any pressure right now. Let's just kind of go with that gut feeling of how important this is to you. So we're going to move right into the alignment question. And as you can see, the value of this exercise when we answer our alignment. So alignment, we're going to rate them as well, just the way you did in this exercise with importance. We're going to ask ourselves how aligned I am right now. How am I living in accordance with this value? So if you live in Manhattan and you have a really high value, a 10 on being connected to nature, but you're in a high rise in Manhattan for work and you don't get to be in nature very often, then maybe we're not living in alignment with that. Okay. So that's not a judgment of good or bad. We just want to take an assessment right now of how am I living in alignment with this value. So go ahead and do that same exercise with 1 being never, I'm not really living it out at all in my life, to 10 being I always live this value out. So when we really start asking those questions about our own values, we start asking new questions or more questions from it. So you are starting to see the importance of really looking at what motivates us and drives us when we start to make decisions towards how we want to set goals or what we want to achieve in the next year, so that we're living in alignment with those values. Now, sometimes our alignment this isn't a bad or good thing in the sense that if you value nature, but you're in Manhattan, it may not be that you can achieve that 10 in the next year, but we can definitely set some goals to maybe get out in Central Park and spend more time there on a daily basis if that's a value for you. And that might end up being something that you want to put in your 2024 goals so that you experience more satisfaction and fulfillment rather than just focusing on what we want to accomplish externally.
I hope you enjoyed the clip from our workshop today. And here are 5 quick takeaways that I captured. Number 1, goals need to align with what you value in order to achieve success. Number 2, when we live according to our values consistently and over time, we get the satisfaction we are seeking in life. Number 3, when you're prioritizing your values, you are able to achieve more because you have motivation. Number 4, satisfaction, peace, and confidence come from living in integrity with your values. Number 5, our beliefs and our lived experiences influence our values. That's it. Stay tuned next week for visioning and some of the neuroscience that I share on the impact of visioning and goal setting. Also, if you're interested, Jashanna and I are co-hosting a retreat in Green, Texas, January 20th and 21st. And right now, if you sign up before the end of the year, you save $100 and you only need to put down $100 to save your spot. If you want to sign up, check out the page on my website at wmbcoaching.com/retreat. And if you'd like to learn more about Jashanna and the work that she is doing, you can visit her on her site at whitefallcoaching.com. That's it. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. Stay tuned next week for visioning as we dive a little deeper and get ready for the new year. Thank you so much. Have a great week.